Today we're going to be looking at the topic of kazoku, family. In class you've already learnt the language, the vocabulary for talking about family, and in two different contexts. The first context was talking about another person's family, and the second context was talking about your own family. Now, think about the two important points that we made about talking about family. When you're talking about another person's family, you should always be respectful. And how do you denote that? Well, there are two honorifics that are used here. The first one is go before the word, and it's only used in a few of them. For example, go kazoku and go ryoshin, go ryoshin. The other way to do it is to have an honorific o. For example, oba-san, otou-san, oka-san, oji-san. Okay? And of course, these words actually have san after it, which is always used for people other than your own family or yourself. When you're talking about your own family, you're being a lot more modest. Okay? And so the language is slightly different. If we look at the words for father and mother, they're completely different. So father is chichi, as opposed to otou-san, if you were talking about someone else's or asking someone else. Please be very careful with older brother. Older brother, when you're talking about your own older brother, you would say ani. Okay, and you notice that when you're talking about someone else's, you say oni-san. Please be very careful because the word oni is a completely different meaning. You can look that up in the dictionary. These are the ones that we need to become more proficient at using when we're talking about our own family. The other important point to make here is that we're not talking to our family members, we're talking about our family members. The other language that we learnt in class, which is really important, is the number of people. Now, this could be useful if we're talking about the number of people in our family, or if we're talking about how many of those members of the family we have. For example, if I wanted to say I have two older brothers, then I would need to know what the word for two people is over here. If I wanted to say that there are 4 people in our family, then I'd need to be able to use this language here. When it's written using the kanji, it's actually quite easy to recognize the meaning. However, there are 3 that have slightly different pronunciations. The first one being for one person, hitori. 2 people, futari. 4 people, does not have the n sound in it. For yon, it becomes yonin. Yamamoto-san, 何人家族ですか? 5人家族です。鈴木さんは 4人です。 Note in this conversation that what are we talking about? We're talking about the family. Asking how many people in the family. There are 5 people. Well, how about you, Suzuki? There are 4 people in the family. We've learnt before these two kanji together have a slightly different meaning. When we're talking about nationality, it's nani-jin. In this situation, when you can notice that it's got the word kazoku, meaning family, then we know that it's going to be the how many people in your family. So it's very important to understand the contextual cues as well. Listen carefully to this description of Satoshi's family. Here's Satoshi. これはサトシ君の家族の写真です。5人家族ですね。お父さんとお母さんと妹さんがいますね。そして赤ちゃんがいます。そうだ。おじいさんとおばあさんもいます。でもおじいさんとおばあさんはサトシ君の家族と住んでいません。そして、サトシ君は犬がいます。犬の名前はポチです。How much of that did you follow? Here's the script. I suggest you pause now and reread this so that you can understand who I'm talking about and where they are. please pay particular attention to the particles that are used. There is some additional language used as well, and you might want to research that or come and ask the teacher. こんにちは。僕はおさむです。中学2年生で13歳です。僕は6人家族です。父と母と姉と弟と妹がいます。姉は高校1年生です。弟は小学校5年生で、妹は3年生です。祖父と祖母も僕の家に住んでいます。What is this person's name? How many people in his family? Well, that's obvious by the picture. Is there any additional information that you can tell about the members of his family? So let's review the key points. The first point to make is that when you're talking about your family, you have to be modest. So you do not use san, the suffix san, after the members of the family name. So for example, you'd use chichi and haha. When you're talking about someone else's family, you have to be respectful. Now that situation is most likely going to be when you're asking a question about someone else's family. Okay? And in that situation, you do use the san suffix after them. For example, instead of chichi, you would say otou-san. Instead of haha, you would say okaa-san. Now, there's one situation which I have not mentioned at all, and that is when you're talking to your own family members. And which form do you use? Well, there is no one answer. Many people use a variety of different forms. For example, I've heard people talking to their older brother and they'd say oni-san. Sometimes more affectionately, it said oni-chan. Sometimes they talk to their mother or their father by saying okaa-san or otou-san. So there is no one specific way that I could recommend right now. I hope this helped.